Welcome to the Closet Calvinist Podcast. Some Christians have an inner Calvinist in them and don't even realize it. We will try to bring out the inner Calvinist that may be in you out of the closet. Here is your host, Mike G.
Welcome back to the Closet Calvinist Podcast. This is episode 11, and in this episode, we're addressing one of the most frequently cited verses against the doctrines of limited atonement and election. The verse I'm talking about is 2 Peter 2, verse 1. It reads like this: "But false prophets also arose among the people, just as there will be false teachers among you, who will secretly bring in destructive heresies, even denying the master who bought them, bringing upon themselves swift destruction." The question many raise is simple and serious. If these false teachers were bought by the master, doesn't that mean Christ died for them? And if Christ died for them, doesn't that contradict limited atonement and election? That's the issue we're going to walk through carefully in this episode. Not with assumptions, not with theology imposed on the text, but by letting Scripture interpret Scripture. Now, why this verse matters? This verse matters because it forces us to ask an important question. What does it mean when Scripture says someone was bought? Does bought always mean redeemed unto salvation? Or can Scripture use purchase language in more than one sense? If Calvinism is biblical, it must be able to account honestly for this verse. So let's do that. What 2 Peter 2 verse 1 is clearly teaching. Before we ask what the verse might mean, let's be clear about what it definitely means. Peter says, these are false teachers. They deny the master. They bring upon themselves swift destruction. There is no ambiguity about their end. They are not saved. Peter goes on to say in 2 Peter 2 verse 12, like irrational animals born to be caught and destroyed. And in 2 Peter 2 verse 17, for them the gloom of utter darkness has been reserved. So whatever bought means in verse 1, it cannot mean they were redeemed, justified, adopted, and then lost. Scripture is explicit that the atoning work of Christ actually saves. The Calvinist dilemma, stated fairly. Critics often frame the issue this way: if Christ bought them, then Christ died for them. If Christ died for them, then limited atonement is false. That sounds compelling until we slow down and ask, does Scripture always use bought language to mean saving atonement? Well, the answer to that is no. In Scripture, the language of buying or redeeming is sometimes used corporately, not salvifically. Consider Deuteronomy 32, verse 6, speaking of Israel. Is not he your father who created you, who made you and established you? Yet we know many Israelites perished in unbelief. Even more striking is Exodus 15, verse 16, where God is said to have purchased Israel as a nation. And yet Paul tells us in 1 Corinthians 10, verse 5, with most of them God was not pleased, for they were overthrown in the wilderness. They were redeemed from Egypt, but not redeemed unto eternal salvation. This shows us that redemption language can refer to external covenant deliverance, not saving grace. Peter is deliberately echoing Old Testament language. Notice how 2 Peter 2 parallels Israel's history. External deliverance, covenant privileges, yet internal unbelief. These false teachers were part of the visible covenant community. They benefited from the preaching of the gospel, association with Christ's people, the Lord's authority over them as master. Yet they rejected him. This aligns with Hebrews chapter 10, verse 29, which speaks of those who profaned the blood of the covenant by which he was sanctified. The word sanctified there refers to external covenant setting apart, not inward regeneration. Another key text is 1 Corinthians 8, verse 11. Some also appeal to this verse. And so by your knowledge this weak person is destroyed, the brother for whom Christ died. But notice the language. Paul speaks phenomenologically, from the visible church perspective. Scripture often describes people by profession, not final destiny. Jesus himself does this in Matthew 13, where wheat and tares grow together. The visible church contains those who profess Christ, are eternally bought under his lordship, yet remain unregenerate. Now here's the meaning of master in 2 Peter 2, verse 1. Peter uses the Greek word despotes for master. This word emphasizes authority and ownership, not necessarily saving union. Christ is the sovereign master over the redeemed, the reprobate, the church, the world. As Colossians 1, verse 16 says, all things were created through him and for him. And John 1:11 reminds us, he came to his own, and his own people did not receive him. They belonged to him in one sense, but not salvifically. Now, limited atonement still stands. Scripture repeatedly teaches that Christ's atonement is definite in purpose and effect. Jesus says in John chapter 10, verse 11, I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. And again in John 10, verse 15, I lay down my life for the sheep. Paul tells us in Ephesians chapter 5, verse 25, Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her. And Isaiah prophesies in Isaiah 53:11, by his knowledge shall the righteous one, my servant, make many to be accounted righteous. Not possible righteousness, actual righteousness. So how should we read 2 Peter 2, verse 1? Here's the Calvinist understanding stated plainly. 1. These false teachers were externally bought into the covenant community. 2. They acknowledged Christ as master in profession. 3. They enjoyed covenant privileges. 4. But they were never regenerate. And 5. They denied the